Hi, I'm Tracy Daly. Sorry, I've been off for a week or so. The whole house came down with chickenpox. My throat was absolutely terrible. Trust me, you would not have wanted to hear me at that point. I do want to shout out to Sarah Jules, though. She's currently reading Tracy's story. I am chuffed that she's put that on her Instagram because the more advertising, the better, naturally. What's more is a little bit concerned. She's probably one of the better editors that I've come across. And she's pretty amazing. Go and check out her work. It's sarahjuleswriting.com. It's sarahjuleswriting.com. She's got a blog on there. She teaches you how to freelance, how to work from home, and generally be an all-round good person. She's amazing. Go and check her out. And a big thanks to her. Super proud that I finished Tracy's story on the podcast. So I'm chuffed for this because I finally completed something I said I was going to do years ago. So if you guys have had a listen, go and leave me a review on Amazon or any of the other podcast sites. I'm still not on Apple yet. There's something about Apple where you have to authorize your account. I've still not quite figured that out yet. We are everywhere else. As soon as we can get on Apple, we will do. I don't have an iPhone. Now, for something a little bit different this episode, I'm going to be joined by my missus, Ellen.
Hi.
And this episode, we chose together. I think it's right to say you loved history, but that you didn't have much interest in true crime as such. Ellen?
I do love history. We did used to watch true crimes when I was younger with my sister in our late teens. Most of them was on prison documentary ones, so obviously through that it's all different crimes and some life story ones.
And we chose the case tonight together. Do you want to tell us about the case?
We did. The case is about Beverly Allitt, also known as the Angel of Death. She was born on the 4th of October in 1968, and she's an English serial child killer.
Oh.
So, she was convicted of murdering 4 children, attempted to murder 3 other children, and causing grievous bodily harm to a further 6 children.
Grievous.
So basically, at the moment, she is still in prison, I believe. And she is serving 13 life sentences for 4 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, and 6 counts of GBH.
GBH,
yes.
She's basically a complete sicko. Not in terms of... It's not fair to say that she doesn't have mental health problems because... It's not actually fair to say that she didn't have mental health problems because she did have this Munchausen syndrome, which... No, I believe Munchausen syndrome is where you have the compulsion to injure yourself and you get attention from being injured, whereas Munchausen's by proxy is where you injure... Oh, yeah, it would be by proxy then. Munchausen's by proxy is where you cause it to somebody else. So initially, she suffered with Munchausen syndrome because when she was a child, she would inject fluid into her chest and tell people that she was ill. She would wear plasters and scrape her knees and arms and say that she was having more and more problems of a medical nature, when in actual fact she'd caused them herself. We're not sure why this came about, or whether she wasn't getting as much attention as she'd liked, or whether it was overshadowed by another sibling. It was understood, wasn't it, the sister who got into the medical profession way before Beverly did?
I believe so. She's got 2 sisters and a brother.
I wasn't aware of the brother.
Sure.
I wasn't aware of the brother.
Yeah, 2 sisters and a brother, but I'm not sure.
So much of this was obviously attention-seeking. I wasn't seeing as much more of it other than that until it transformed into Munchausen's by proxy when she gained attention from hurting other people. And she definitely had some sort of psychosis going on. She had no feeling, no emotion through all of her interviews, really. And the scene of her getting into the police van, happy, smiley, was just appalling.
Without a care in the world.
Yeah.
Just as if you was leaving your front door going for a stroll.
One of the police women saying she'd described killing the children as if it was nothing, just like making a sandwich.
Yeah.
And then she'd walked in and she'd said, "Oh, look, haven't I put on weight on?" And she was ever so happy about what was happening with her.
Yeah.
Rather than being concerned, she's just been convicted of what, 4 murders?
Yeah, the police officer sort of said as if they were sort of best friends or friends that hadn't seen each other for a while and was just catching up, and as if it was normal life for her.
So she definitely had a mental condition. However, I've known people with schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, drink dependency, some serious issues. A guy who had done a lot of injuries to himself. He never killed anybody. Guys who've grown up in care, who've had traumatic pasts, never killed anybody. And yet, this woman doesn't get the attention she needs as a child and decides she's suddenly going to go and kill 4 children.
Mm.
Babies.
And she intended to kill more. There was 13 victims and 4 deaths.
Absolutely appalling. So what were the total amount of crimes then?
So 13 victims, and it was 4 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, and 6 counts of GBH.
Okay. Crimes were committed over a period of 59 days from February to April 1991, the children's ward at Grantham and Kesteven Hospital, Lincolnshire, where Beverly Allitt, which is the first time I think we've actually mentioned who the case is about. So there you go, we're all new to this his and hers thing.
Beginning.
I forgot. You know why I forgot? I was spilling my beer on the sofa at the time. Yes, that's how much working with my wife terrifies me. I actually spilt my Budweiser, and they get a free ad thrown in there. Because, hey, I only drink once a week these days. So this was at Grantham and Kesteven Hospital, Lincolnshire, where Allitt was employed as a state-enrolled nurse. The sickening thing about this is
she was employed without a DBS and any checks on her.
She was employed without a DBS, and if I remember rightly, she barely scraped through the exam to be a nurse in the first place because she took so much time off sick. And if I remember the documentary accurately, the only time there was no injuries to children during the period of her employment
was when she was on holiday or on a day off.
She had 3 days holiday specifically, and during those 3 days not a single child was injured.
And none of the staff seemed to put it up there or recognise that they had a new member of staff. This is when it started. That they only happened when she was in their care. So out of all of them, every single child was under her care, and not one member of staff seemed to pull it up or take it further with a report, apart from, was there one doctor that tried to and they threw it out?
Playing devil's advocate for a minute, I know they were short-staffed. I know they took her on as a last resort because nobody else wanted to travel the distance. This place was like in the middle of Wales somewhere. So it was in the deepest dark... Was it Lincolnshire?
Yes, Lincolnshire.
Yeah, so it was in the middle of nowhere. And it was basically hard for them to find staff. So they did take her on last minute. Now, bearing in mind that they've got child after child after child coming in ill, they're ran off their feet. I understand how it's got to that point where they've gone, I need to take somebody in, I need to look after these children. She's passed her exams, she's got like a year's experience or whatever it is. She'll do, we need all hands on deck. I don't understand how you could let somebody in without a DBS check. That's the kicker for me. And then you don't make the association after the 3rd death that she was always around the child at the time. She was always the one that said, hey, you know, this child's injured. This is what happened. Come and help me. The first time, it's a one-off. The second time, it's a coincidence. The 3rd time, somebody best be asking some serious questions.
Yeah, and I think they also said in that documentary that it was quite unusual, the amount of children taken in with sort of minimal complications to health that had such bad reactions or bad turns or deaths, by coming in with something that they would send home sort of within a week or so, and then having a complete opposite turn.
The twins broke my heart. That really did. The twins broke my heart. And hearing the dad on the documentary retell the story. Chapman, I think his name is, but we'll have to have a look.
The twins' names was Becky and Katie Phillips, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you mean Paul Crampton. So he was the child that survived.
Right.
And he was 5 months old at the time.
Yeah, because he went in with something routine, didn't he?
Yeah, he went into the ward with a chest infection.
And she injected him with insulin.
And overdosed on 3 occasions the day before he was transferred to another hospital where he recovered. So he was transferred to another hospital, not in her care, obviously, I believe, and he recovered, because she wasn't there.
This was the entire clue to resolving the case in the end as well, wasn't it? Because they sent off his blood for testing, and it turned out he had something like 15 times the...
It was to do with the levels that was found in his blood, wasn't it, I think? And it was...
So you imagine, we've got 2 girls, we've got an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old, so let's pick the 4-year-old. And imagine that we know she's had an asthma attack before. She's not asthmatic, but she's had an asthma attack before. So we go up to our local hospital, we've walked in, there's this cute little nurse there, and she's like, yeah, no worries, she's going to be absolutely fine, we're going to take her on board, we'll look after her, calm down, not going to have a problem, I swear, this and this. It happens all the time, it's routine. And then an hour later, we find out that our kid's turning blue. She's shaking, she's convulsing, her back's arched, she's in all sorts of pain, there's a horrible condition going on. This nurse is really calm, she's reassuring, and everyone's freaking out, and the doctor makes sure she's okay.
Yeah, and basically, I think they even mentioned in the documentary that how well that all of the parents took to this nurse. And I think you have to use the term nurse loosely with that one, because I think she, as you say, she scraped past and she wasn't much of a nurse at all. But yeah, apparently the parents all took to this woman really well. Everybody had confidence in her, and she was calm around them, to the point that even, as you say, with the twins, they actually asked her to be a godmother.
Yeah. But going back to this fella, Chapman?
Crampton.
Going back to this, he then was recalled in.
Yes.
Because there was a second time, they kept this child in for observation. So again, use the example of our daughter. We're going, okay, she's fine. I'm so glad she was at the hospital because this horrible event's occurred. We don't know how, we don't know why, but we're here. We've done the right thing, and she's being kept in for observation.
And you wouldn't think anything other than, that's great, I'm so glad she's in good hands, she's having good care.
Yeah, you'd be proud.
Anything.
You've done the right thing. And yet the next day, with the very same nurse, the very same thing happens again. Now, it's only thanks to this doctor, I can't remember his name, that he said, we're going to transfer him. We need to find out why this has happened. We've got to send him to an hospital that knows more than we do, and ships him out to a bigger place, because this Grantham hospital was in the middle of nowhere, that they got that test running. And only then did he get better. Years later, you discover that this woman has gone on to kill several children, and yours survived.
Yes.
How do you not get to that point where you want to go looking for this woman? At the same time, how do you get to that point where you're looking at your kid thinking, they tried to kill you twice, and 6 other kids have died? Or in this case, I think it was 4, wasn't it? 4 children actually died.
4 that died,
it's beyond belief.
And that's the thing, like, as you say, it was years later in that respect. I think they happened in 1991. I think the trial and the imprisonment was in 1993, I think. So it was a couple of years later.
Okay, so fatalities chronologically. Liam Taylor died on the 22nd of February 1991. He was 7 weeks old.